Welcome. Another episode of the South Star Classroom. On the other side, there's a storm that might be a brewing in Houston education. Come on back on the other side with us.
Audio Jungle.
And welcome back to another episode of South Star Classroom. That's Jubilee, that's Omar, that's David. I am Charles, and I'm very much looking forward to today's topic, but we missed two of our people last week. So let's just start. Omar, how have you been, man? What is new with you, brother?
Man, I am doing all right. I'm out here in Denver again. That's why I got the funky background. I'm at my compadre and comadre's house. We're going to go see The Cure tonight. It's lovely. Ooh. The weather's nice, just a little vacation. We're in our last week of school, so I fly right back tomorrow and wrap up the school year. I got our 8th grade celebration. Really just quick dope take. I was speaking to our middle school principal, Miss Alonso. David, you met her, and she was telling me that she's had this flurry of kids from her first class. So she joined us in year 3. Her first class of students, they're now graduating from high school, and they have come back to the middle school to talk about all the incredible places that they're going and college and places out of state for college, and how, I'm not lying, their words, how the crush values of the organization had made a remarkable change in their high school careers, in their outlook for their own professional and personal development, how they're taking that all to college. So that's insane to hear students, not only like no one comes back to your middle school. Like, y'all ever go back to your middle school? I did not go back.
Well,
to
I
my
do,
middle
but
school.
I did a lot. I worked in the district, so. But
Yeah, there it is. But like, out of your own volition, these kids came back to a middle school, which is insane, to share the incredible work that they're doing, but also to basically discuss how the leadership and character development stuff that we do to empower kids with skill sets, these soft skills that we talk about a lot, have made a dramatic impact on their success in high school and college. And that's coming from them, not from us. So that's a resounding level of affirmation that we're doing the right work and we're on the right track. So things are good, brother. It was awesome to hear that. And then we had David out with us to visit and scope things out. So pass it over to him, man.
How you doing, David?
I'm good. Yeah, so as Omar said, I was out in El Paso last week. Got to visit his campuses and talk with people, students, staff, his leadership team, just kind of diving into some work with El Paso Leadership Academy. And I was there for this conversation that his middle school principal had. And I was just listening, as an observer, just kind of picked up on the, the power of the work that the school and the network are doing, empowering young people in middle school so that they can go on and thrive in high school, and before they transition to college or work or whatever they do, coming back to recognize and call out how the middle school program impacted their lives. And it was quite powerful, like it's definitely, it's happening. It's happening, people. And so I really enjoyed the visit. Look forward to moving forward with the next steps in this project. And it was great. So thanks, Omar, to you and your team and your community. And then just on the personal front, we're getting ready for summer here, like, a lot of you are. We've had some family in town this last weekend, and it was busy, but it was great. We had family in from out of town, and we got together like 4 nights in a row. We went out to see the Padres devour the Chicago Cubs yesterday. I
have my Cubs hat on. It's the 1960s to 70 alternative insignia right here. But okay, congrats.
So my voice is a little hoarse. You know why? Yeah, we were hooting and hollering. Because baseball is that thing. It's like it's we have a beautiful stadium here, and it was almost sold out on a Monday night. So San Diego Padre fans are definitely they're like OG fans. They come from all parts of the county, and it was a great experience. I love baseball. I love going and just being around different people and all walks of life, and you're all there mainly for the same reason. So
that's what's up, man.
Yeah, man, that's it.
Listen, the Cubs won a World Series in my lifetime. I was able to see it. We almost choked it, but it happened. I prayed for it since I was a kid, so they don't owe me anything for the rest of my life. That's how happy they made me, because I didn't think the lovable losers would ever win it all. But Jubilee, why don't you check in before I do? How are you doing?
I am doing exceptionally well. We're in June, people. I mean, happened so quickly, and this is like senior week for my son. So we've got senior dance and senior trip and senior parade and senior ceremony and all the things. So it's a great it's a great time of year. The pool is open. The birds are singing even more. I got extra bug spray for the wasps and the hornets and all of the creatures that think they're about to do something to me this summer. You're not, because I am well equipped. So it's great. Everything's going well. I put the things that
shout out to the bugs.
Because let me tell you something. Last summer was my first summer out here in Maryland, and I was mortified. I was sitting out on my patio, happy, just minding my own business and drinking my tea, and some big old black creature with I was like, why? What? Why are you here? And I stayed inside for like 10 days. I wouldn't go outside. I was like, I have to figure out strategy. You figure out strategy for everything else, Drew. You got to figure out a strategy for these southern bugs. And so
we just had a whole conversation about utility. It could have been really helpful right there. You know what I mean?
Welcome to the South.
Right. I think she ran with me.
Where was the dog? Yeah, I was gonna say, where's the protector? It's supposed to be barking. Work.
She barked, and we both ran inside together. But this summer shall be different.
I am the only one here that does not have a pet, and all three of these people really love their animals. I don't hate animals. I just want to put that out there. I want the John Wick dogs. That's all, and I want somebody else to walk them and clean them up when they use the bathroom. But for my check-in, I got three good ones and an annoyance. So one, our HBCU report is out today, and I'm so excited about it. It was a true labor of love. It might have been one of the most robust reports I've done, just with the way we kind of dove into not just HBCU history, but the history of Black people educating themselves and being agentic throughout this country's history. I just thought it was really dope, and we got to talk to some incredible leaders. That's called the report is called Ebony Towers. I think I got a video that I can share later. The other good thing is I am a nerd, y'all, and maybe y'all don't know this little secret known fact about me, but I love Apple products. I've been a beta tester. Yeah. I've been a beta tester for Apple.
I see where this is going.
So I have the new iOS now, right? So I'm a beta tester. I'm one of the people that helps get the bugs out. I report stuff or whatever the case is. But they just introduced a new device, and like the iPhone, and then the iPod before
some
that.
1984 type shit right
there. And the future is here, and it is both.
Oh,
I was both super intrigued and mortified, but the toothpaste is out the tube now for the AR device. And I'm really, really interested. And much love to our partners at BS3. I got your dues, brother. I ain't forgot, but much love to them. The other one that I would say that I love, staying in my nerd bag, y'all are learning a lot about Charles today. Spider-Man Beyond or Across the Multiverse. It may be one of the best movies. Definitely one of the best movies I've seen this year. One of the best Spider-Man movies I've ever seen. It was incredible. I think it was incredible for any race. I think it was incredible for any age group. I think, there was the brown Spider-Man, the Indian Spider-Man, the black one. And the thing was, I think they did a good job. It was not an intentional, let's check these boxes. It was things that actually worked in the story. And the story, it starts off very, like kids can get it, but it takes a turn in it. And I think what they're doing is growing their audience. So they know that their audience is a few years older. It was just great storytelling. And then finally, I will say, y'all, I know that I do a lot of running with this stuff and have to be online and I am getting so tired of social media. I'm trying to hang in there. I mean, my block button is getting strong. Like, I got
You block people, Charles?
I did not before, but it's coming. And there's some people that are just not getting a hint.
Jubilee front, you block.
Listen, I'm thinking about going private. I'm thinking about like David and y'all might have to just take over that piece of it. I want to do my stuff in peace, but go ahead, David. I am trying to be a better person. I am trying to be leave certain things behind, you know what I'm saying, as far as like my temper, and see, I'm hitting microphones and stuff, but it is I am at my patience is very, 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 very thin.
Before we jump in, can you just tell us one? I know you gave a broad like annoyance.
I know.
What is it? What did it?
Listen, man, I think just over collected time, and then I think sometimes, like, you know, a lot of people know this Dr. Cole, like they know this, like this public persona, and I've always had like a temper, and I'm trying to change and be different, and I'm trying to just move differently. So I'm not even gonna go down that path, because I'm trying to, you know, remember when you came on, Jube, and you had just came from the school and you was ready to raise holy hell?
Oh yeah, they called the cops on me. That's why. It
is. I'm trying not to make sure the police are called on me. So it's all good. But today I am so happy to have y'all back, man. I think Jube and I held it down last time. I thought it was really cool. It was very conversational. And I'm really proud of the growth that this podcast has had, and that will continue to grow. And if you like to listen instead of just watching the video, or you want to watch the video later, we are on Spotify. So make sure you migrate over there. Make sure that you get us over there. We're going to continue to make improvements. But with no further ado, David has brought a really dope topic, and I'm gonna let him explain it to us so we can get into our discussion/debate bag.
Cool. Thank you, Charles. And again, thank you for our viewers. This is an interactive show, so make sure that you're commenting and bringing your questions forward. We will definitely do our best to respond to them. So thank you to everybody who's listening across different platforms. So today we are talking about a subject that we had brought up a couple of weeks ago, actually, when it was a possibility, but it's now happened. We are an education podcast first and foremost, and then we also tackle larger issues that come up, cultural issues. Today, I think we'll talk a little bit about the role of government here, just in general. But we are back on the topic of a school district in Texas, right? Houston Independent School District has been officially taken over by the state of Texas, with the support of the legislature and then the signature of the governor. And they have appointed a new superintendent, as well as assigned, I don't know how many, essentially like board members. So essentially the top leadership of the district, the superintendent and their school board, have all been kicked out and replaced, right? That's like the first thing that happens in a takeover. Houston Independent School District is one of the largest, like top 10 in the country. I think it's the 8th largest district in the U.S. So this is not some random school district.
I thought it was larger than that.
I thought it was like 4.
I thought it was like I thought it was like top 5.
New York and L.A. Yeah,
it's 8th largest.
It has Houston at this point.
190,000 students. So the infrastructure. Almost 200,000 students, 274 campuses, right? And about 27,000 employers. So it's also one of the largest employers in the Houston metropolitan area. So this is a big kind of shakeup for the actual, not just the district, but the city and all different levels. So this is happening right now. And I think what we want to do on today's show is just to talk through some of the basics of what we know is happening, and then move on to talk about some of the underlying questions about what does this mean for kids, because that's what we talk about on the show. A couple of other pieces of information. So the reason why school districts go into, they call it different things, a takeover or state receivership, is for a number of different reasons. It can be financial, right? You're just spending too much money. Too much money is going out, not enough is coming in. And then there could be particular like violations of state or federal laws, like special education laws, things like that. In this case, based on what I've seen, it's very interesting. It looks like the Houston Independent School District has actually been making some progress over time, but there is a stipulation that allows the state to take over a district. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Omar. Even if the focus is on one single campus that has been struggling to improve outcomes for children, right? I think in this case, it sounds like of all the campuses, the focus is on one high school. It's called Phyllis Wheatley High School, and it has to do with their outcomes in special education. There are also some allegations of misconduct against school board members. And then I guess there's been an ongoing presence of a conservator who's been overseeing the district for years. So I think in California, what do we call that, Charles, in California?
Take on.
Yeah, but what is the one person that like they sign a it's like a babysitter basically, right?
Yeah, it's
the Emperor from Star Wars.
It's when you're in receivership, you have
state administrator or something like that.
Yeah, I mean we call that person state administrator, but there is another word. But I know that they get to walk on the top floor, and they have they got power and authority. And this is even after we are no longer under state receivership. So you get from under it, and then there's like a almost like a probationary period.
Yep. And so just a couple of other pieces around the grading of the district. So unlike many states, and I learned a lot in talking with Omar last week and just in doing some research, Texas actually has one of the strongest accountability frameworks across the 50 states. They still do in California, we don't like to put a number or a letter to anything, right? In Texas, every school gets a grade, right? Gets a letter. And
I helped pass that law.
Yeah, I mean,
tiny amount of help.
Yes, I mean,
I was involved with that.
Yeah, so I definitely learned about that, and then looking at Houston ISD has actually made some strides in reducing the number of campuses from with a D or an F rating from about 50 to 10 over the last 2 years. It looks like that's significant. So over the last 2 years, the district has actually moved 40 schools out of the D and F ranking. Right?
Oh, wow.
That's progress. That's growth. If that was in California, if we had a system that could actually an accountability system like that would be getting praise. But in Texas, they just see things differently. In Houston ISD, 94% of their schools have a grade of an A, B, or a C.
Wow.
Right. So it's kind of it's a very strange thing for me, and it kind of just changes the way that I think about it. And hopefully, Omar, you can add some more color.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why are they being taken over?
As to why this takeover is happening, because it to me it looks like it's a big district, which is challenging, but it's also been showing some growth, right? And so that's what I know. The district is taken over by a new superintendent, a new school board, and they have this whole the idea of democracy, right? With democracy comes inefficiency, right? And then the less democracy you have, the more efficient you can be. You can make these kind of quick changes in the system. So that's what I have initially. We have a question, I believe. We talked about the basic mechanics here. Omar, do you have anything to add on this situation or how these things work in Texas?
I mean, I can add a little bit later. The one thing that I would add is that despite the inordinate amount of gains to the overall system, what they found was that this one high school has had 9 consecutive years of just like abject failure, like abject failure. And they were correcting a bunch of other places, but it's a microcosm to basically say you have been not only disparaging schools that are low income, that are like majority minority, but you have not figured out a corrective system for the schools that need the most support. And now it's been 9 years. And we have told you after year 3, do something about this school. And then it was ignored. Do something about this school. And then they were brought more money, more resources. Do something about this school. So what happens is that despite the fact that systemically it looks very good, it's a microcosm for the fact that they essentially ignored this school entirely, despite that TEA brought an inordinate amount of attention, resources.
TEA. We got for the lay people.
Yeah, the Texas Education Agency. Thanks, Doc. So as a result, after 9 years of an F rating, after 9 years of the Texas Education Agency being like, please do something because you are disparaging generation after generation after generation of kids from this school. And we don't see why. You've got all the money, all the resources. It's one school. You are now in a position of just like insubordination. You have ignored us for 9 years, and you're testing us. You're calling us out on our bluff. And Mike Morath is like, cool, call us out on our bluff. Done. Wiped out the superintendent, wiped out the board, massive conservatorship. And they were like, this is what happens when we play nice for 9 years and you decide to ignore it. So it was a testament to the this was very political. This is saying to the state of Texas, like, we are actually caring about accountability. We are actually caring about kids. We're actually caring about ensuring that we're providing educational equity to this state. And I got to hand it to Mike. Like, I really do. Like, this guy consistently, in a very positive way, surprises me in all the best ways, doing the right work to essentially establish that there is an accountability system. No, it's not just charters anymore that we're going to hold accountable. Because, had that been us, we would have been shut down after year 3. So that's really just the 2 cents that I've got on this subject. And it's a lot more than 2 cents. It's a deep dive into not just what happens, but the political ramifications of ignoring support from the state, which is like illogical. Bro, if you knew this one school was going to cause all this havoc and then you ignored it for 9 years and then you still did nothing about it, like, all right, dude, cool, later. Like,
well, Jube, I want you to jump in. I know just another question or comment and question, and Jube, it's double dutch. You're gonna have to just jump in with the fellas at some point. I just think that, so listen to this. I think for David and I, David has worked in a lot of other places, but we did both work in Oakland. This sounds like foreign. This sounds like Russian to us because
I don't even get it.
doing a state takeover, doing a takeover of a district because of performance. Now, in Oakland, we did our takeover came as a result of financial. It's usually the finances, you're mismanaging money. Because if we would have said, hey, we have this modicum of quality standard here, and you need to get above that, we would have been taken over in probably, long before I even got to high school. So that's one. Two, as the layperson, let me just make sure I'm hearing this right. So this school, they have been warned about a singular school, not even just district-wide. We're talking about a place that has pretty high grades, but the district is saying, hey, you need to fix this. And it's been 7, 8, now 9 years. It's a wrap. So we're going to do an entire takeover. That's what that launched. And now we are here having this episode. Did I get that correct?
Yeah,
that was going on?
And here, just a quick add-on. Doc, David, you're right. Texas has only really looked at financial stuff for the overwhelming majority of their time since I've been chartered and beforehand. This is a step forward in the accountability measures for the state of Texas to say that we are not now only thinking about finance. We're putting our money where our mouth is. This has all come about from Mike Morath and the new commission. He's not that new at this point. He's been in office for a while, but it's really about saying, we are holding charters accountable for governance, finance, and academics. these 3 tenants. So why aren't we holding every other school accountable for the same 3 tenants? And they did. This is why you're hearing about the board getting shaken up, because there was, not only like a lack of ethical conduct amongst the Houston ISD board, but the academic component as well. I'm like, dude, my hat is off. I'm like, dude, it's about time. Great.
Yep. Wow. Not shaken up, but totally removed and replaced. So Jubilee, what are your thoughts on some of these like mechanics and some of the basic fundamentals of what we talked about around this significant move?
I think 9 years is dumb. That's what I think. Waiting 9 years.
Some of these places got 90
generation.
But I think, it's like we just gonna make a show out of y'all real quick. But like to come, that's like the parent that's like, don't do that, Johnny. Don't do that, Johnny. And the parent never enacts any level of consequence. And then the one day Baz is out for like the 16 years you never disciplined Johnny, and then you somehow think that that's gonna eradicate, all the wrongdoings and all of the cross boundaries and all that happened previously. No. So I'm not impressed, inspired, or motivated by hearing this. Like, okay, it leaves me with a lot of questions, right? So I'm still trying to understand kind of like the timeline, but my questions really are around like, did they wipe out the board and bring in new people?
That's exactly right.
So here are my questions. Where are the high performing schools, right? They have great financials. They have highly effective leaders and teachers. Because what I do know, right, through work with Omar, and we met through this whole system or whatever, right, is that there are accountability systems and there are these tools in place to support high performing teachers in Texas, right? So like, where are they, and why aren't they on the board? Like, who are these people that y'all just put on this board? And like, what's your belief about like building up? Because like you pull the rug, what it sounds like is you pull the rug from underneath. One, you make an example, because 9 years is dumb. You make an example. Two, you pull the rug from underneath. So I'm not sure, I can't tell if the things that were working, such as high performing schools, high performing teachers, leaders, if they were honored in the space and left to represent, and to help build up, right? Or if it was like, well, we're going to throw out the baby in the bathwater and we're just going to start new, because new doesn't mean better, right? So, and then it sounds like there's a lot of potential for both growth and regression. So it just leaves me with question marks depending on who's at the table.
Yep.
These are really good questions.
And a quick, I don't have all the data here, but so we are talking about a brand new school board, right? Non-elected, no ballot boxes. Questions. And I think I believe there was a process in place for people to apply. It sounds like they got around 400, it says 462 applications were received. And of those, they came up with some process to land on whatever it is, 9 or however many trustees they have. There's a different piece with their profiles, but yeah, that would be something else interesting to dig into, like who are these people, right?
Yeah, because you mentioned a stat about the amount of schools that had between an A and a C rating, right? So where are the A level leaders? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna move stuff, right, and reorganize things, like get the best of the best at the table. If we're literally drowning as a district, get the people at the table who are doing it and doing it well for our children and talk to them. Right?
Can I jump in there?
Please.
Because I know. So how I'm hearing it, Jube, is that there's a governing body over the district. It's not the people, like these are not people that can probably go in and say we're firing that principal. It sounds like this governing body, this accountability body was saying, get your house in order, talking to their superintendent, talking to their board. It seems like after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, they didn't make that move. So they cleaned house, got a new superintendent. And from what I read, that superintendent is making like at least 30 of those educators reapply for their jobs. So so that is, does that somewhat, because like there's a what you can actually do versus like,
I get that, but the fact that the governing board waited 9 years, they needed, who was clearing out the governing board?
Well, what I was saying, but I think Omar was saying that he said the guy that made that decision is relatively
Mike Miles.
Mike Miles, or the person that he gave props to was relatively new. So it was somebody at that level, from my understanding. But I think we're getting really into the weeds of like the larger thing to kind of debate, right? Like, but correct me if I'm wrong, Omar, because I know you're there. But I think you said the person that had to drop that hammer and make the decision to wipe out was relatively new. Is that right or no?
So yes and no.
Okay.
Mike Miles is the new superintendent.
That's a new soup, but there was somebody else you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, he's
Mike
talking about
Morath is the commissioner of education. So what's going on is and
how long has he been there?
Since Abbott has been governor. So it's been a while. Like, you're talking about 7 years, but look, change takes a long time. And the thing is, his first stint was all about like, let's just start doing data systems and start providing a lot more support. There was a lot of revamping of old systems. His second term was a lot about like not only applying incredible data systems, but starting some really innovative things like the teacher incentive allotment to pay teachers more, doing fun things like year-long school calendar, which we absolutely did and adopted. In fact, like, I feel like he and I have ESP, like the things that we're doing, they get adopted. And he's like, we should be doing this across the state. And I'm like, he's not paying attention to me. Maybe we just have ESP or something. But I think now Jubilee, in his arguably about to be third term, because it's about 7 or 8 years, he's like, it's time to start dropping this anvil on people because they're not taking it seriously. Because essentially what the Texas Education Agency does, less than really holding people accountable, is providing a lot of resources and a lot of support to get people out of the clouds. This should have been the Houston ISD board and the superintendent saying, we are going to take the responsibility of fixing these schools and fixing this school. What I can for the life of me, Jubilee, understand is that they were doing a pretty good job across the spectrum. Why they didn't focus in on this one school and say, this is the linchpin school. Let's drop all the resources, all the tutors, do a rehiring process, do a restructuring process, because that should have happened arguably after 3 years of failing anyways.
Yep.
TEA gave them a bypass and said, yo, it's been 3 years. We're going to give you all this support. And then I think it was another 3 years of just not doing the work. And they're like, all right, last chance. We're going to give you a little bit of time to turn this around. And they're like, all right, dude, after 9 years, you guys haven't managed to turn this around. Let us show you our power. Let us show you what you can do when you ignore us.
So,
and I think I know that's exactly what's going on here.
So what we're talking about now is, so the current question, which I think gets to Omar's point and what Jubilee was talking about earlier, was, the government is stepping in, whether it be a political act or not, it's not a very difficult thing for the state of Texas to come in and do a takeover, right? It's like a bureaucratic thing, right?
Yes.
But now you have a large school district, one of the largest in the country, that serves a large population of Latino and African American students, under totally new leadership. So the first part is the easy part, right? What Jubilee was talking about earlier was, where are the leaders with, that are running the A grade, B grade schools, showing up in this process. So government overreach, yes or no? Where is the logic in this intervention, right? How does this actually make things better for kids? Like, is there a process for there to be a sharing of best practices or a total revamping of their professional development or how they monitor the health of their schools?
Right.
To kind of share the good things that are happening with the Houston ISD, with the schools that might still be struggling on this ranking. So I don't know I'm posing this as a question to you all. Like, what are some of the levers that you think should be in place for actual school improvement and district improvement to happen for kids?
I mean, I watched the video of I forget the second Mike, or the Mike that's the new superintendent,
Mike Miles.
Yeah, seems like a pretty even keel guy. I didn't get a chance to like look into his record and all of that, but it's like again, I have more questions. Right? Did he have a chance to really do a deep analysis? Like, did he have an opportunity to look at the district holistically before taking over, or is he kind of building the plane and flying it? Right. The other piece of information is like, okay, we know TA provides a ton of resources, a ton, whether it's through PD, whether it's coaching, whether it's literature, whatever it is, it exists in abundance. Like, there's not, that's not missing. So what is the piece that this administration, that this superintendent believes will be the catalyst? Like, have they identified a catalyst? Because switching stuff out, right, and then putting new things in and then doing the same thing, of course, we know that's not going to get a new result, So I know that it's not necessarily ideal if it's a takeover. I'm sure it's connected to urgency and like, we got to stop the bleeding and the hemorrhaging or whatever. But ideally, it'd be great if they had a time to do an in-depth system analysis to see where everything is and come up not just with like 58 next steps, but some high leverage, points, some high leverage pieces that they feel like, this is what's going to shift. And yes, to Omar's earlier point, change takes time, right? But we're talking about developing stability, right? And gaining and building momentum. So that 3 years from now, when we look back, we could see that one piece that we said, okay, if it's, teachers need, more clear next steps during coaching, right? There's a lot of, data around us, giving teachers feedback, but it's not something that's actionable in the classroom. I looked at the observation reports across the district, and I realized this is a snag and we need to address it. And so we're going to work on that for the next 3 years. Like, what's going to be the catalyst so that when you look back 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now, you will see the difference.
Yep.
Yeah. Does this represent a government overreach or logical intervention? I think it's logical intervention. And I think that it goes to, what your standard is. And just to double tap on some of the things that Jube has said, I've been a part of superintendent transition, right? Think of it like almost as a presidency. There's a general analysis that you might have in the country and where those things are, but there's just information that you won't have until you are the person in the seat. I can't talk about, certain things going on with certain personnel. I can't look at certain things, right? Like, so there's a general thing. And then usually, I know when Antoine came in, I wasn't on that official transition piece, but I got called in. There was a lot of like listening campaigns and diving into data. So because you have to make your strategic plan, right? And your plan has to be. You're
talking about Antoine Wilson, the former superintendent of OUSD, right?
Yeah.
And what was that generally? What year was that when he came in?
Oh man,
ballpark.
Man, I'm about to age myself. Maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
It was. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And it's just more information that you get. The same thing that happens with board members, right? We always get these board members, and David and I know this because we've dealt with board members coming in. I remember this with Sam Wilson when we talked to him. He just had this view of what he thought was wrong, and then he got in and got a lot more information, and he went from being this very like super pro-union person to like, I think y'all kind of not following the rules, right? Like, and it kind of hurting. But to answer the question, here's what I think. And I'll use a story to kind of, galvanize like the general people that don't work in education. I love sports. And I'm gonna use 2 Chicago-based teams, the Chicago Bulls and their coach Billy Donovan, and then the Philadelphia 76ers and Chicago's own Doc Rivers. He was born in the same neighborhood I was born in. He went to school with my mother and my aunt at Proviso East. Billy Donovan has led the Chicago Bulls for a number of years. They have not made it past the first round of the playoffs or whatever. The last time they got to a conference final was 2011 before Derrick Rose got hurt. All right. He got an extension last year before the year started. So he has not won anything. He has not shown he's winning anything, but the Bulls decided to extend him. Now, Doc Rivers is a Hall of Fame coach. He will be in the Hall of Fame. All right. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But when the 76ers hired him, they hired him with a mandate, with a standard. We are hiring you because we have a win now team. We have Joel Embiid. We got you, James Harden. We got Ben Simmons. We got these people. Your goal is to get past the second round. Now, I think Doc Rivers is a much better coach than Billy Donovan, but Doc Rivers was let go when they lost in the playoffs this year, right? When Jimmy Butler I forgot who put them out. But the point is that one of these cities has a standard. Like the 76ers are saying, our standard is the chip. It is not like nice to do's or whatever the case is. The Bulls do not. The Bulls is just kind of like, look, we're in a big market. We can make some decent money. We can do whatever. We might win, we might not, or whatever the case is. And I think when we talk about government overreach or logical intervention, I would prefer a district that is going to go for it. I would prefer a district that says we have a championship caliber team. Now let's actually make championship caliber moves. And so, and you saw that. You saw the Milwaukee Bucks win a championship less than 3 years ago. They fired their coach this year. Toronto won a championship 3 or 4 years ago. They fired their coach this year. And there's a difference between the teams that are winning championships are moving coaches. LeBron James has won a championship, and then Vogel, and then dude was out, right? So when you ask that question, David, I look at it as logical intervention. I think that the will is there, and hopefully that the leadership that you got understands the mandate. And if they don't meet that mandate, then there might be additional changes. I think what Oakland has is illogical non-intervention, where we talk about a high school that's been felon for 9 years. Try 90 years, try 80 years, try 70 years, try multiple generations over and over, and they just say, well, just give us some more time, give us some more time. All the meanwhile, kids are being failed and being banished to poverty. So and teachers still are striking every other year, and they're getting more money, but education isn't rising. So that's how I would answer the question.
That's right. I got something short to say, then I want to hear from I
know that was long. Sorry, that was very loquacious.
On the same piece, though, I think logical intervention, because I think, you know, if you look at what's happening in Oakland, California, or in LAUSD, or in San Francisco Unified, it's not one school. It's like more than half of the schools, right, that would be in this situation. And then so that calls into question like our fundamental belief in like the role of government. Like, what is the role of government, right? School districts are part of the government, right? They're lower on the totem pole. You know, eventually you have your state, your local, your county, and then your state governments. But yeah, there is a fundamental role that state governments should play in intervening when any part of government is not functioning. That includes, you know, police departments that have high rates of acts of violence towards people of color, or, you know, any kind of like, you know, police shootings or things like that. Like, look into it, investigate, and fix it. You know, school districts that struggle to meet basic needs for children, right? Look into it, take action, do something. We recently moved from a city that I loved, Oakland, California, to another city that I love, San Diego, California. And they're both in the state of California, but they operate at such a different, like, basic level. Like, we actually have a government here in the city that we live in. You know, granted, we have a Republican mayor, but you know what? They pick up our trash at the same time. They keep our streets clean. If you need the police, they show up. The schools are good. You know, there's a general order to things, right? We have an unhoused population that has access to services, and they're able to, you know, put them in temporary housing, give them services to transition. And so, like, they take care of people. It's like the role of government. That's what government should do. So I don't care if it's in like a red state or a blue state, in a suburban area or an urban area. I do think, you know, this type of intervention makes sense. So I support it. And I wish other states or localities would learn from what's happening in Texas. I'm shouting out to California. So That's what I got to say.
Before you jump in, what I will with Jube, I think like I agree with you though. Now I don't know if this is the right person. I don't know if that plan is going to work or whatever the case is. I think those are the right questions and things to kind of. I think if you set the mandate, I think you get to hold them to that mandate. But I think the general decision to make or whatnot, like I would look at a logical intervention. I got your back on that. I'm just looking at it from the decision making process. Go ahead. I cut you off, because this is your state. So these your people.
I mean, yeah, man, but like it's a big ass state, man. I can't be representing everybody in this place. Although I could. Hire me, man. Hire me, governor of Texas, man. I'll do it, dude. I'll do the things. So you have two really large scale things to look at. The question, government, is this government overreach or logical intervention? Here's the irony, but it goes back to a historical question. So if you look at, the early 1900s of the United States, the question of what does government do and what does it serve was a ideological question that stemmed all the way through World War II, all the way. And it was this idea that, like, I'm not lying, like James Garfield and Grover Cleveland and all those cats during the Gilded Age of the United States were bartering, which is, what do we do? Because there was a fundamental disagreement amongst a number of those presidents that the government should be here to help people. They believed it should not. They believed that the government was here to basically create a protection in terms of defense, stabilize a tax system, and that's it. Highways, guys, weren't built until the 1950s. The idea of a federal highway wasn't done until Eisenhower. So the idea of connecting and interconnectivity and the government playing a large-scale role in helping the life of a citizen wasn't even an ideological belief that was practiced until after World War II. Texas has been consistently on the side of less government is better. So it's ironic because I would state that a lot of Texans believe that this is massive government overreach, given the history of where Texans have been. I then have a very different view. I do believe government is here to help people. I do believe that the systems of school systems are here not just to provide an equitable, not just to provide an education, but provide an equitable educational opportunity for every kid. I think Morath is on that page. So for him, I think this is a logical intervention, because if you've been ignoring children for 9 years and ignoring institutions and ignoring us and not doing anything about it, someone's got to come and spank that ass. And that is exactly what happened here, because this wasn't just logical for Houston, guys. This is logical for the state. This now becomes, oh, holy smokes. We can't ignore TEA anymore, and we can't ignore these failing schools anymore, because they're going to come in here and do a inordinate audit on our board, our finances, kick us all out. And now, like, oh, shoot, we got to be accountable. So this goes back to like a very, very simple psychological ideology of when you're not being watched, you will oftentimes do nefarious things. Like, you're going to act bad when no one's looking. Like, you're going to take more samples from the Costco if someone ain't there to be like, man, you can only take 2 samples. Like, and the state of Texas is like, yo, Houston, you have been taking samples at the tune of, I want you to think about this number. The operating budget of Houston is $2.889 billion. They're a $3 billion institution. You're trying to tell me that you got $3 billion and you can't help out kids in one high school? Yeah, this is a logical intervention, because they're like, yo, listen, I know it's expensive to educate kids, but if you're rolling up on $3 billion and you can't solve one thing for a high school, who are you and what are you doing? Get the hell out of here. They went in there with that mop from the Apollo Theater like the Sandman and brushed their asses the hell out to show every other independent school district in the state of Texas, if you're not acting right, we're here and we're going to hold you accountable, which is that psychological premise going from, we're going to leave you alone so you can do whatever you want. This is the state of Texas now saying, we're watching you and you're accountable to us. And if you're not doing it, that's it. And to answer your question, Jubilee, it's so much more about that, because even and I got to hand it to the Texas Tribune, an outstanding newspaper, by the way, incredible stuff. They were the ones that really said it just the way you said it, Jube. It's like, what are the consequences of what they did in Houston? Are they really devising a plan? Are they creating something that's going to shape this? Are they bringing in the power leaders? The answer is no. TEA, the Texas Education Agency, by doing this, isn't really doing that. The hope is that by doing this, they're forcing Houston ISD to be like, we have to solve this problem, because now we have this board of regents that are now appointed to overlook us, to be like, are you guys doing this? Because now we're the ones having to oversee that you guys are going to follow through, create a plan, devise a plan, create greater equity, and ensure that the $3 billion that the state has given us is actually going towards improving educational outcomes. So that is truly, I think, the sentiment, not only to the state of Texas, but arguably to the rest of the country, to be like, yeah, you act up, you're going to get smacked up. That's how we do it on our side. To quote my man from the West Coast.
There you go. All right, Jubilee, you're up. What do you got? You've been. We're going to give the floor to you for a minute here, just to your thoughts.
I'm gonna follow this story. I'm interested in seeing like how it, I'm interested in seeing how it plays out. I'm interested in seeing if this could be an example of like, to Charles's earlier point, if you have a standard, and I think the standard's got to go all the way up to the government. Like, I get it, act up, you're gonna get smacked up, but like, to what degree? Like, what is the standard? Because I think, right, I agree with the move. I don't think it was a government overreach at all, but it's the power to sweep house.
Did she freeze or did I freeze?
Clean
no,
house.
she bounced out and came back in. Go ahead.
No.
You're back.
No,
you're good.
We're good.
Oh.
Keep going. You're good.
Yeah, I say, like, they used their power. They wielded their power to make a major move. But I also think they need to use that same power to create a mandate or a standard, like, at the same time, right? Otherwise, you just like blue wind, and it's just like, all right, so some of the leaves fell off the tree, and right, but like over time, like, there's going to be new things that sprout up and grow. Like, what are you planting? Like, what was the point of it? So you made an example, and that's cool. But like, what are your hopes? What are your mandates? What are you hoping will happen over the next few years? And yeah, 9 years still gets on my nerves. Like 9 years, 90 years, any amount of time where children are not being educated, right? Receiving high quality education, where they're going to broke down schools, or they're sitting in front of educators who don't care, or governments that don't care, or board. It's always going to get on my nerves. I don't care if it's 90 seconds, 90 months, 90 years. Like, I still have questions for why it took 9 years, and why was it able to be ignored for that long? And that, to me, is indicative of a bigger problem. So I'm going to follow it, because I'd love to see, what the conversation will be. I felt a little encouraged by old dude. Mike, what's his last name?
Mike Miles or Mike Murat?
The superintendent?
Miles is the new superintendent.
Oh, Miles. Yes. They brought him from, he's got some experience. I know they're bothering him about his certification, his superintendent certification.
Yeah, they got past that though.
Did they? Because I'm like,
that
all
was,
right, y'all. Okay.
TAs, they were just like, we've done it before.
We're gonna waive it, right? Like, okay, let's not.
Because he's demonstrated, he's led it before. So they've just like,
yes, like, educated, like, listen. So I am interested in just in following it, and hire me so I can be a strategic advisor and help you get it.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Get that plug in.
Get to it.
Right? Because in 366 days, with a solid strategic plan and the right people at the table, and the only people that are qualified to be at the table are people who care about what happens to kids, not because you got titles and degrees. Nobody cares about that. So that's where I'm with it.
I do if you're talking about Figment. I do if you're talking about financial stuff. I do care that you
have to be
understand
skilled.
how that.
You have to be
well,
skilled
the only reason I said that, Jube, and David can like attest, like we had professional people that dealt with money, like telling us what was happening, and people were like, "No, you shouldn't even be at the table." And they were like, "No, this math has to align."
Yeah, no. You got to be skilled, and I'm not talking.
I get what you're saying. I fully get what you're
no
saying.
savior syndrome stuff, but like,
no, I get what you're saying.
We've heard enough from people who don't see children as the reason that we're all here, right? And like 9 years, and back to the 9 years, to me, it's like, who was thinking about the children? You know, I always come back to this. What about the children? You know, who was thinking about them? Because 9 years means that a kid went in at 5 years old and is about to go to high school and had a crappy education from kindergarten to 8th grade. And then you got the people posting foolishness about why they can't pass civics. Well, this is stuff like this is why.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. So
straight up.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do this. We got 5 minutes. We'll just do a quick round of closing thoughts on this topic, and we'll follow it. This is a big story that relates directly to what we talk about on the show and the work that we all do independently and together as the South Star Classroom. So at the end of the day, you have to ask, you don't have to answer this question directly, but we didn't quite get to it. We've got to it kind of, around the way, but at the end of the day, we're talking about young people, right? And so, closing thoughts on this topic. I'm going to go ahead and go first, just 'cause I've been thinking about it. And, I mentioned it earlier. I think it's interesting how we have, this is, I guess, part of living in a, what do they call it? What is our form of government? We live in a
representative democracy.
Yeah, something like that, where you have like, states' rights versus federal rights, and like every state can kind of, act and behave, kind of independent of how others do, right? And so that's interesting.
We're in a democratic republic.
There you go. Yes. And so my brain goes to like what's happening in Texas versus what's happening in California. Like in California, again, we don't even have the ranking scale for schools, right? And so how would you even know to kind of, take any kind of action, right? Based on anything that is even somewhat objective, right? And so I'm thinking about different states and how different states run and manage different accountability systems for schools. And I think that requires a lot more attention, from policymakers, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on a whole blue state, red state tirade. I'm not going to do it right now. So that's number one. And then just the concept of time, right? We're not talking about a full district, but we're talking about a school that, failed to make any significant moves over 9 years, and then the chickens come home to roost, and that's called accountability. I think it's logical. So, but then again, 9 years is like, 70% of a student's K-12 education.
Yeah.
And some, unfortunately, the bigger these systems are, Houston ISD is huge, LAUSD is huge, New York is huge, Miami-Dade is huge. These big systems move very, very slowly, and change happens over time. If you're a parent of a child, that should not be of your concern, right? You want the best for your child.
Right now.
And to be in a failing school right now, right, like yesterday, right? To be in a school that's not meeting your child's needs, whether it be a charter or a public school, is unacceptable right now in this moment. And to see how slow and kind of like lethargic and sluggish our government moves around some of these critical issues. We're talking about like the future, transformation of our next generation of leaders is really upsetting to me. So I think the concept of time here, I would wish and hope to see going forward, quicker interventions in Texas and in other states. And it's motivating me to think differently about that. And, in some of the work I do, and some of my social media activies, just to be a little bit more loud about that. So I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Who's next, brother?
Omar.
I'll be quick because we're already at time, and I kind of gave my final thoughts already. The overriding ideology of accountability to me is just important, and like that's a simple way of being like, if you know you're being watched, you're going to act right. If you've been able to get away with things, then this is why you have accountability measures. So this is what David, Doc, you're talking about the federal system. The federal system essentially is one in which you have a strong federal government, but then there are various states that have their rights, and it's the 9th and 10th Amendment that guarantee rights to the citizen and rights to the state and rights to the citizen respectively, right? What is the difference is that how a state decides to interpret those rights. So California has one interpretation of where they want to guide those rights, especially towards education, and Texas now has a bit of a different ideology. In my opinion, I actually think this is one of those things that Texas is doing right, in that, hey, you have been for far too long unaccountable to kids and taxpayers. You've been far too long allowing abysmal failure to be unnoticed and unchecked because those kids are minorities and that's a poor school. So forget about it, because I guarantee you, dude, if that was Highland Park in Dallas, or if that was what school in the Woodlands, all of these very affluent schools with majority white kids, that failure rate wouldn't have been 9 years, it would have been 1. And there would have been hell to pay for the superintendent and the entire board. So it's even more disparaging that it's 9, but it is hopeful and optimistic that someone is saying, we're going to spank that ass if you continue acting a fool, and we're going to absolutely dominate you, because the last thing anyone in Texas ever wants is government overreach. So to enact government accountability, I think is extraordinarily effective measure.
Beautiful.
Charles, and then we'll let Jubilee close us out.
Absolutely, man. I think in my final thought, I would just say this, man. I think I'm going back around standard. I don't know. I'm not in the local weeds of this place. I don't know the players involved. So I'm talking more from a broad stroke around just what was presented, and just, the logic train that is going down the track here. I will say this though, right? Like, I subscribe to 2 forms of thinking when we talk about education. It is either the emperor has no damn clothes and don't nobody know what they're talking about because it ain't got fixed yet, or they know exactly what's happening and then they just devious. I would like to believe it's the former. I would like to believe that it is people that are trying their best and just have not figured it out. But with that being said, and if that's the truth, and if you are in a place that does not have high standards, or they are waiting 9/90 years, what is your standard? And what can you do? You have Google in your pocket. There's a thing called trigger laws in some states. I don't know if it's everywhere. For those that don't know, trigger laws is a lever that parents can pull when they say my school is not up to snuff. There is a criteria that has to be met, and then they can quote unquote pull that trigger and rebuild a school. I'm saying that to say, man, as we have these type of conversations, is do you want to leave your, not just your children, but your lineage? Like, do you want to just leave them out to dry while people are getting it together? And I would just say, I think that the emperor has no clothes. I think everybody is out here walking naked, and I think that they don't have the answer. And so you need to call it out. I don't care if you got a PhD or you just a dad that got a 4th grade education, but you love your kid. You get to ask about standards, and you get to set a mandate. Are you going to be the Bulls and be okay with just having a winning record? Or are you saying, look, Doc, we got you everything you needed and we need a damn championship? It's not my fault that Ben Simmons forgot how to shoot and is scared of the NBA. Not my fault that James Harden wants to go to the club. It is what I am saying is we going to try it with somebody else. And if they don't get it, then we're going to get somebody else in here. And just like those NBA coaches, I am a human. These are all well-educated people. These are all very hireable people. And like Doc Rivers will have another job when he decides to have one. These superintendents that might be ended up getting let go, I promise you will be able to find other employment, and it will probably pay way better, and they'll probably have to do way less work. So those are my thoughts. And you are the consumer, you are the end user. This is supposed to be your product for you. And if Amazon can ask me how well they dropped the package off on my like front doorstep, you can ask what type of education is your kid getting. So that's where I'll leave my piece. Take us home, Jude.
I love it. I'm still riled up over here. The accountability piece, I think, is a big deal. I think we need accountability, and I don't know that it should be determined by state. I mean, you know how I feel. I've been talking about this whole national piece almost every single episode, because it's like, let's come together and say what an American child needs to know, right? Let's get all the stakeholders at the table and determine what that should be and the vehicle that we'll use to get them there, period. And if you're doing it, great. And if you're not, you got to go. How might this impact students? So it could be the best of times. It could be the worst of times. I think, only time and strategy will tell. But a couple things came to mind. Like, this is a huge overhaul, which means huge change management. I heard the gentleman, I'll call him Superintendent Miles, say at the end of his conversation at the interview that he started to name that the parents may experience anxiety, and he understands that or what have you. So he seems like he has emotional intelligence and maybe the capacity to handle change management. And I think that also trickles down to teachers, and that trickles down to students and how they absorb, this kind of transaction or transition. And whether or not he's going to be able to get buy-in from all the people to be able to make these changes, that'll determine how it impacts students. And whenever they do create a plan, I would imagine that they have something that they're going to roll out, how they actually roll that out. So still a question mark for how might it impact students, but my hope and prayer is that they are considered at every waking turn for every single decision that is made. And that's it.
Well, look, that's the first time we've been hit with Dickens. You know what I'm saying? To close out, she busted out Tale of Two Cities on us. We appreciate that, man.
So many literary references, man. She's coming back with Baldwin and Walt Whitman later.
It's coming. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna be at that lake, looking at the ocean for the poetry soon. I like it. Thank you, Jubilee. That's Jubilee. That's David. That's Omar. I'm Charles. And you can see us same bad time, same bad station next time. This is the South Star Classroom.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.